I have, Taylor. As you can see, our beautiful green-eyed boy is just sitting in the shade. He's having a nice rest after his little scrub hair meal today. As you can see, he's breathing quite quickly. It's because he's quite warm, but he's found himself a really nice spot, which is in the sandy Mulawati drainage, and he's kind of just watching around and looking up at varying things that are going on. Typical Thamba with his wide, big green eyes, and he looks as though he's having quite a warm afternoon, so he's just taking it very easy at this stage. He's not really gone very far. I didn't expect to find him exactly where we were earlier. Given how hot it's been today, I would have thought he needed to find some shade, and he has found probably the best place he could. It's right under a really big leadwood that he's got over above him, and a tiny jackalberry as well, and so the two of them are providing ample shade for our boy just to take it very easy. There's the big leadwood on the right, and in fact it's not a jackalberry, is it? No, it's another leadwood. So it's two leadwoods that are shading our little boy perfectly. What are you watching? I wonder if there's a squirrel bouncing around here somewhere. He keeps kind of staring up into the trees, so I don't know if there's a bird or a squirrel or something that's looking at him. And there's no squirrels shouting, so I'd imagine it must be a bird that he was watching in the trees just now. But it's almost like his eyes are closing every time he breathes. Hello, boy. I walk in the rain. You're asking if leopard territories are similar to rhino territories in that a male will have a territory with several females in his area. Yes, it's a very similar concept. Most territorial animals are that way. So basically what happens is with territorial animals, you'll generally find the males are heavily territorial. Females will have home ranges and will be fairly territorial in the case of the cats. And in fact, it's not fairly, they are very territorial, but the males will have the bigger territory that will encompass as many females as possible. So if you look at somebody like Tingana, for example, who's the dominant male at Djuma, he's got Tandi, Kuchava, Shongile, Shadow, Ingrid Damyang female, Tiani, Inkanieni. So he's got quite a few females that he's busy looking after at the moment, and well, not looking after, but basically mating with and using to be able to sire cubs. And you'll find that will be the same with leopard, the same with lion, rhinos. They all have that similar system. Except the thing is with rhinos is that the females are a little bit different to the cats, in that the cat females tend to be very territorial, whereas rhino females not so much. You will find that rhino females will walk around in groups together, and as long as there's food and water, quite tolerant. Interestingly enough, with male rhinos though, when you have times of extreme dryness, so let's say like last year's drought, that territorial notion changes quite a bit. They no longer are the same, in that they actually will allow males to come into their territory for water and grazing, which is very, very strange, and they'll let them come through. There will be a little bit of kind of huffing and puffing, but as long as those males do not scent mark and they do not try and mate with their females, they actually don't mind them walking through. So they'll let them come through, they'll let them defecate as a normal sub-adult male would do, and that's okay. But as soon as they try and challenge by scent marking or creating a midden or trying to mate with females, then they'll square off and fight. But it's almost like they know that there's no water around, and so everybody's got to come to the same place, but as long as they don't try and oust them, they're actually quite fine with it, which is really strange for a territorial animal. It's completely unlike the leopards that we have over here that would be far more aggressive towards any intruder in their territory. It almost looks like he's made himself a little pillow. Look, he's got the nice green leaves underneath his chin, which is stark contrast to his gold spotty coat, and it looks like a little pillow that he's made for himself. Are you comfy, little man? Yes, looks like it. He's very stretched out at the moment. You can see, look how long he's gotten as well. Sundara, you're asking if you're wondering if Thamba had the rest of his scrub hair. Well, judging by the fact that he's still got quite a round tummy, I would think he has. Also, the guys were telling me that they came just now to try and track him, and they didn't find anything but fur, so I think he's probably finished the rest off and has eaten it all, although he might have just dragged it into some shade somewhere to eat a little bit later. But I think given where he's lying now, he's nowhere near where that carcass would be, and so anything could go and steal it. So I'm pretty sure he's finished up and eaten the rest of it and is now just enjoying the fruits of his labor, which is a really good nap. There's nothing better than a nap after a really good meal, particularly on a hot, warm afternoon. So think this is where Thamba is going to be. I'm very surprised though that when we went past Treehouse Dam, funny enough, I was just thinking about this now, that given how warm it is, that Hasana wasn't there. But Hasana can't be far away. Those trucks head straight towards that dam, and I have a funny feeling he's under a tree somewhere just resting, and that we'll find him at that waterhole later if we had to go there with a spotlight. It's going to be interesting to see if Thamba decides to get up this afternoon and start walking south towards Twin Dams. It's going to be very, very interesting, because at the moment he's not looking like he's going to go anywhere, but it has been warm. He's probably panted quite a bit, which means that he would have dehydrated. Also, once they've eaten, that digestive process often means that they do require water and they do get thirsty, and so I wouldn't be surprised he takes a little stroll down towards Twin Dams, because that's the only water that's close by from here. I mean, they're probably equidistant at the moment from Gari Dam or Twin Dams, but he seems to favour going down towards Twin Dams than he does going up towards Gari Dam. So I'm pretty sure at some point this afternoon he is going to get up and get moving and start heading in that direction. But that is about as relaxed a cat as you could ever imagine. Proud cat mama, you want to know what colour the cubs are at birth and whether the rosettes are visible even when they're tiny. Well, they are a much darker colour than what you see now, and that's because of their small size. The rosettes are all packed together, so the rosettes actually resemble a little bit more like spots than actually big rosettes, because they're tightly packed together, and so they have a much darker appearance, almost black appearance to them. But then as they start to grow and we start to see them coming out of the dens, you'll start to see those little rosettes forming. And I'll show you a photo of a very sort of young cub that was about 8 weeks old, and you'll see that it does have a little bit of coloration on it already, and there we go. So it's already got some signs of those rosettes, so you'll find that the rosettes do form already when they are little. So you can see just on the sides here, so this area along there, this rosettes are tightly packed, so it almost gives a more black appearance, but they do then expand out and form those big rosettes that we see on the more adult ones. But they do have a darker appearance, but there still is a bit of gold, particularly around the head area, and then obviously brightly coloured eyes that they tend to get as well. So they really are super cute when they're young and do take on a much darker appearance. They also get a little bit of long white fur that kind of gives them a more sort of disrupted pattern. Now he's just turned for some reason, and I'm not 100% sure why. He's kind of had a situation where he's just watching something. I think somebody must have dropped a hat or something like that, because his demeanor has changed completely. It's almost like he's in a stalk mode. You can see, look at how he's watching and looking. So I think somebody dropped something, because the way he's looking now is as though something happened and he didn't really agree with it too much. You can see now he's watching them, and off they go. I think what we're going to do is, if that vehicle disappears, then we are going to try and reposition ourselves, that we get just a slightly better view, because where we are on top here, Senzo's unfortunately dealing with a horrible little wiry bush, and so it's not ideal for him. So as soon as they're made some space, then I can reposition ourselves a little bit better. Alright, Senzo, you ready to go? Sorry, little Thamba. Didn't mean to give you a fright. So like I say, just bear with me for 2 seconds while we just find ourselves a little bit lower down, and so that we can see him much better than what we're seeing him now. Am I good there, Senzo? Yeah. Let's just go down and across. Is that better, Senzo? As far as I can go, but that looks a lot better, doesn't it? At least now we can see his face, and like I say, Senzo doesn't have to worry about this horrible bush that's on the right side of the drainage that was just obscuring him. We're also much lower, so we get to see him a little bit better, and also see his size a lot better. When you're down on top of an animal like that and you look down on them, it almost makes them look smaller than what they really are because of the angle. But when you're down lower like this, you get a better impression of his size. But he is beautiful. See that rate of breathing is fairly fast. It's not massively fast. It's not like he's heavily panting like when we see these guys on big carcasses, but he is hot and he is breathing slightly fast. And the reason why he's breathing with his mouth open is all just to cool down the blood on his tongue. So basically what happens with them is as they breathe, there is evaporation that takes place with the saliva on the tongue. That evaporation causes cooling, and the cooling then cools the blood down and obviously sends that cooler blood back into the body. And that's how they cope with these extreme temperatures in Africa. But remember that they are covered in fur, and it's like wearing a jersey, so they have to come up with a way to be able to deal with heat, and that's how they do it, is that they will pant and keep their mouth open and breathe quite rapidly to be able to then cool that body down as much as possible. Also, where he is now is great because he's got a nice breeze blowing, he's in the shade, so as long as there's shade, a wind, and he can pant, then the chance of him overheating is very, very, very small, even on the hottest of days. But that, if you ever thought of a leopard-looking place, that would be it, wouldn't it? It's this kind of sandy riverbed with big trees on either side and a leopard just sitting in the middle of it, resting. For me, that's always like the way that you would see leopards is in that sort of fashion. Or that's how I always think of a leopard, is in these drainage lines or riverbed systems on the sand under all these massive trees. Well, when I was a kid especially, that's how I always used to think about it. Although when I was a kid, I used to think that they would be in the trees, which, as we learnt and as we've kind of spent time with them, have realized that that's not the case. A leopard spends very little time in a tree in comparison to time on the ground. They only use trees when they need to put food up, or if there's really something irritating them down on the ground, whether it be another predator or whether it be insects or wet ground or something like that, that they're trying to get away from. So it's very actually seldom that our leopards spend that much time in the trees. In fact, I would say probably 80% of their time is spent on the ground. And particularly if we think about all the sightings we've had of Thamba, I can't remember the last time, if I've ever seen him in a tree actually. I don't think, I've seen him once actually in a tree, and that's it. So out of all the sightings I've had of this little individual, only once in a tree, the rest of the time cruising around on the ground and playing around and going up fallen over trees and those kind of things, and termite mounds more than anything else. Deadhead Tom, you're asking if any adult leopards have kept their blue eyes. Well, to a degree. I mean, obviously they don't keep electric blue eyes, but there have been a few that have had fairly blue kind of colors to their eyes even as adults. So there was a female in the Timbavati, and I forget her name now. I can't remember for the life of me, but she used to have really bright blue eyes. They were beautiful. Then here in the Sabi Sands, the one that's probably got the closest blue that I know of is Tiani. So hers have faded slightly, but they still are very pretty. I'll try and find a photo of her as an adult. So her eyes are not 100% blue, but they do have a very blue tinge to them. So they are maybe a little bit more like Thamba. I suppose Thamba's has got more of a green sort of take on his than what Tiani does. But Tiani, you can see she does have a little blue tinge in her eyes. And this was a photo just before I started at Safari Live. So you can see her eyes tend to be a little bit more blue in color. Obviously they are taking, it was a summer, so there's a bit of a green tinge to the coat and all of that, but her eyes tend to be quite blue, and they've stayed like that, so they haven't changed much more than what those are. So she's probably the closest that I've seen to have bluish eyes, but there's none that have bright sapphire blue eyes. That all fades and they end up with that sort of aquamarine color more than anything else. But there was one in the Timbavati that had much more blue in her eyes than what you see with a leopard like Tiani or any of the other leopards that we've seen in this area. It's far more common to see yellows and pale yellows, oranges, and even these kind of lightish green color that we see on Thamba. That's a lot more common than what we see with blue, unfortunately. I always think a leopard with bright sapphire blue eyes would be really quite something to see as an adult. Tiani, when she was a little cub, was ridiculous. Her eyes were blue, like the bluest swimming pool that you could think of. And it was really quite amazing to see her when she used to stare at you with those little eyes. It was quite piercing, but unfortunately she grew out of them a little bit and it faded somewhat since she's gotten a bit older. But his eyes are still wonderful. Look at those eyes. Are those not the most magnificent color as well? They really are exquisite looking. It's also quite a unique color, this that we see. It's not too many leopards out there with these kind of greeny colored eyes. There are some, but not many of them. Most, like I say, have pale yellows and ambers and oranges. That's kind of what we see a little bit from the leopards, and even sometimes brown eyes. Now, there used to be a few leopards here in the Sabi Sands that used to have different colored eyes. So there have been reported cases where they have had different colored eyes, and I saw one that once had green and brown eye, which was really quite interesting. It was an amazing sort of contrast in the two colors, but I have never seen it personally in real life. It did happen for a while, and it can happen, but I have never seen it. One day, you never know. But that is one very sleepy cat at the moment. And I've been keeping an ear out for our Birminghams just to find out what's been happening with them. I believe that they got chased by a herd of elephants a little bit further west, but I don't think south, which is not ideal, because if they've been chased west, we're probably in all likelihood not going to be able to see them from the boundary at all. But I'm hoping that their general movement from where they are is going to be in a southerly direction, and maybe we'll be able to pick them up just around sunset, which is what our original plan was anyway. So we'll spend time with Thamba, and we'll try and see if he's going to wake up and maybe get going. It's starting to cool off a little bit now, so it's been quite warm, but the sun is losing that horrible bite to it, and you can see now he's kind of looking around a little bit, and I'm sure he'll start to wake up at some point, and will start to take us on a little walk around, as he likes to do. He likes to go for a little afternoon stroll, so I'm pretty sure that's going to take place at some point. For now, it's just about stretching out, getting a breeze over the tummy, and staying nice and cool in this sandy drainage section. Oh, I just wanted to check above me here. I thought I saw a bird, and I wasn't sure what it was, but it seems to have bounced away. Hold on, I need to get my binoculars quickly to have a little look. Where has it gone now? He does indeed, Taylor. So for those of you who are not aware of what Taylor's talking about, I once had a sighting of him where he was completely intrigued by a spider web that was dangling from a tree, and it kept him fascinated for quite some time, and he was trying to bite it, and the web kept dangling in his face, and it was catching the light, and that's why he was super intrigued by the spider web. It was a really cool sighting to have. So he is still sleeping and taking it very easy. Every now and then he just pops his head up just to check around him, but otherwise it is still one sleepy little cat. And he obviously was busy last night. We know that he had his scrub hare killed, so at the end of the day, I'm not surprised he is sleepy. Now, hopefully he's going to give us a little upside-down look like he sometimes does. Sometimes he'll look from kind of over his shoulder. There we go, like that. There we go. How beautiful is that, though? He is such a wonderful cat. Now, if you do hear cameras clicking behind me, we do have a vehicle very close to us, so I do apologize. It's just that they are parked right near us, and so they are going to click around. Oh, look at that stretch. You tired, boy. And it's hard being a celebrity. Yes, I know. Oh, look at the size of that paw, though. That paw is monstrous. And the flies are driving him crazy as well. They've not exactly been very pleasant for us, too. They've been landing all over us as well. So they've been a bit of a handful. I think they've been irritating him a lot more than what they've even been irritating us at this stage. But at least now the vehicle is going to move slightly away from me, which means that that camera clicking sound won't be nearly as loud as what we heard just now, which is good news. I'm pretty sure he is going to pop his head up at this vehicle. The vehicle's going to go over a branch, and maybe not actually. They managed to negotiate that quite well. Now, there is also a wasp that is driving me quite crazy. It keeps trying to land on my hand, and I've had enough insects stinging and biting me for the last few days to not have a wasp. Now, be careful there, Senzo, because it's also flying around where you are. It looks like a little thread-waist wasp, which are fairly common out here. And I was reading some really interesting stuff about wasps yesterday, and how some of them, particularly thread-waists, design their burrows where they lay their larvae, and how they keep ants and various other predators away from their larvae. It really is quite incredible. Sometimes they'll take caterpillars and they'll drag them down into these holes, and then what they do is in the hole, and there will be the circle, or an odd sort of shape. It's not a perfect circle, and so the wasp will basically then find a stone that matches that shape perfectly. So it will go and it will literally fly and fly and fly and fly until it can find a little pebble that kind of matches that general shape and general outline of the hole itself. It will then pop that in as basically like a little plug to stop predators getting in there. Then what it will do is it will push sand all around that little plug and kind of cover it up and try and make it as though it is basically sort of visible, and then it turns and it goes from about a centimeter around there, and it will flick its back legs so that loose soil goes over, and it is impossible to see it once that's done. From there, if ants start coming towards that trail and into that area, it will actually then go and attack those ants, pretty much bite them in half, and then it carries them away from the hole, so it doesn't leave any disturbance around that hole, and therefore the larvae is completely camouflaged and completely safe. It is absolutely fascinating how these insects look after their young, and how we think a small insect like that would never be as intelligent to know how to keep a little hole and a little larvae safe, but yet this wasp knows not only to keep it safe by camouflage, but here you can see the wasp is just flying around me. Careful there, Senzo. And not only does it know that camouflage is vitally important, but it also knows that any sort of disturbance around there or any sign of carcasses could attract other ants to that area. And that's why it moves the ants, is because if the ants die there, the pheromones left will attract the rest of the colony to come and investigate, and they're going to be very upset when they find some of their colony dead, and they're going to then excavate and look around. So it carries them away so that it's distracted and moves it out of the way. It really is absolutely fascinating that a little insect is capable of that much intelligence. Now, the reason why I'm talking about wasps is because Thamba's still sleeping, and like I say, he was buzzing around us. I was hoping to get it on camera if it was going to stop on my dashboard, but it seems to just stop for about a second and then fly off like wasps do. They never do sit for very long periods of time. And so, unfortunately, we won't be able to get that particular wasp on camera, but it's a beautiful kind of metallic blue. It's not the spider hunting wasp that we do see. Those sound like helicopters coming in. This one is a little bit smaller than that and is not that same kind of metallic green blue that we see. It's more blue, dark blue black that we're seeing on this particular wasp. Like I say, poor Senzo is trying to dodge it, let alone film it, and that's why we can't put it on camera. It's also not sitting for long enough either. Nikki, Thamba's paws, yes, they are big, and generally you can kind of work out that a bigger paw normally means a bigger leopard. It's not always the case. I have seen leopards that are quite short and stout, but have massive feet, and we know in the Birmingham's case, if you put all four Birminghams next to one another, there's not that much of a size difference between the four of them. I mean, the manes are bigger, but the body size is not massively different, but yet the feet size in those boys is completely different. One Birmingham boy has got tiny feet, and one has got absolutely massive feet, but in terms of body size, they're all generally the same. So it's not always a guarantee that their paw size will indicate the size of leopard they're going to be, but at his age, to have paws the size that he does, I reckon that he is going to be a big boy. He's also just physically, he's not small either. He's tall, he's quite well built already. Remember the other day we saw him with Hosanna, who's 6 months his senior, and there was very little in the way of size between the two of them. Hosanna was slightly bigger and bulkier, but not by much, not by 6 months, that's for sure. Well, not in my opinion anyway. To me, oh, look at that. He's got a little ball. Look at his claws around the ball of dung as well. Oh, you've got yourself a little play ball. Oh, now we're going to roll on it. So you see it's between his paws. There's just a ball of elephant dung that's in between there. What are you doing, you silly cat? Now we're going to go to sleep with my ball. Nobody will take my ball. It is my ball, and I will not give it to anyone. I'm not making fun of you. Don't look at me like that. But that is super cute. He kind of dug his claws into it, and then he just held it, and he's still got it in amongst his mitts. But look at that face. So cool to see. He really is got the most striking features, in my mind, of the leopards that we currently see at the moment. His pink nose, light eyes, and dark markings make him just very, very striking. He's kind of, there's something about him when you look at him, and maybe it doesn't transcend a lens, but here in real life, I promise you, when he looks at you, you can't help but kind of just look back and stare at him. It's weird, but you end up just staring at him and kind of realizing just how perfect nature is, and how amazed that there can be coats like that and colors like that in the wild. It really is an incredible thing. But I'm loving the fact that he still hasn't let go of that ball. It literally is like a kitten with a ball of wool. It is his, and he will keep it close to his chest until such time as he decides it's not his, which is pretty funny. So we'll see if he plays with it a little bit more. Sometimes they will have full games when they really are small cubs. You'll find they'll attack balls of dung and they'll claw at it and they'll throw it up in the air and they'll bite at it, and then eventually they kind of lose the interest and move away. And as they get older, that also stops. What are you doing? You are a silly boy. This is what I was saying about Thamba. He never really sits still for that long, and he's always kind of twisting and turning and doing silly things. So he's an entertaining character to watch. You know, we've had very few flat sleeping sightings of little Thamba. He mostly has been kind of up and moving and has been doing some sort of interesting behavior. So it's been nice to kind of spend that time with him and to watch him, because he is a little character and typical young male. I mean, Hussain is the same. They've got the attention span of a squirrel, and anything that moves and makes a noise they're watching and looking at and biting at and chasing. And so it's really cool to watch the two boys, and we've been so spoilt with both of them. We've had such regular sightings of the two little princes lately that it's been such a fantastic learning curve for us, and we've been spoiled to watch these two grow and develop as individuals. But I think what I might do, I just want to see what he does and whether or not he settles a little bit more like that. But what I might do is just go around the other side so that we can get another look at his face rather than his back, because I think he might face up the drainage for a little bit longer. He's almost positioned himself that if he does sleep, he'll sleep facing that other direction and not us. He'll have to turn his whole body to face us. So I want to go to where that fallen over log is on the other side of the drainage. There's a nice little gentle slope into it, and so I can go that way, and Senzo also won't have to deal with branches once again in front of Thamba's face, because if Thamba looks our way, poor Senzo's got branches all over the place, and so it's not going to be that pleasant. Shame, boy, are these flies bothering you? Look, he's growling at the flies now. So you can just see every now and then his whiskers lift and he shows his teeth as if to kind of scare the flies off, or not that the flies are in any way taking notice. Silly boy. You're going to face that way, okay. So those are the sticks I was talking about, so I do apologize, but given that he is facing this way now, we'll just stay where we are. It's much better in this particular section. Yes, you get them. Don't let the flies be the boss of you. No. It's all too much. Like I say, to be a celebrity and to show oneself off, it can't be done all the time. You've got to just take little bouts of napping between all the cuteness and all the playfulness. And so I think he's in a situation now where he's going to just chill out for a while and hope that everything leaves him alone. Now, from one sleeping cat who is spotty and beautiful to other sleeping cats that are not so spotty, but still equally as beautiful in the Mara. He is indeed. He's starting to groom himself. So we know this morning when he started to settle down that there was some grooming that went along, and that was kind of him getting ready for his afternoon or morning nap, should I say. Now the opposite process happens before they wake up. So he will start grooming himself in preparation to start moving. The sun is just setting now. It's starting to get a little bit cooler, and so I think we might see little Thamba going for a bit of a walk now. I wonder if he's not going to go and try and find some water. He stood up for a little bit and then decided, nope, still got some grooming to do, and then sat down and groomed again. So I think he's going to start thinking about moving fairly shortly. You can see he's just grooming his back foot there, and that's his back foot. And look at the size of the paws in relation to his head. Remember that their back foot is smaller than their front foot, and so he's got massive back feet already, and his front feet are even bigger. So that's almost adult size male back foot, and you can see the 3 lobes perfectly there on the back. Really nice, and the roundedness of those lobes as well that we always talk about with males. So the males have those really round back lobes, whereas the females are a little bit more angular than that. Oh, look at that. Hello, boy. I just love how he looks around. He's always wide-eyed when he looks at things. He's not like other leopards that will kind of half look and kind of just open their eyes. He likes his eyes to be wide open and kind of really stares at everything and analyzes and takes notice of what's going on around him. It's always nice just to sit and watch him looking. Henny, you say Thamba is an absolute joy to watch, and that he's always curious and really kind of engaging in his environment and watches everything that moves and checks everything out and analyzes everything, and that he's one curious cat. He is indeed, and he is a joy to watch. I agree with you. I think he's a wonderful leopard to spend time around just because of his curiosity. He's a leopard that, even though he's sleeping, you never know what you're going to get from him. He might all of a sudden bolt upright and look around, and this afternoon he's been in a fairly sleepy mode, but still we've seen him looking up in the trees, we've seen him grooming himself, he's been biting at flies, he's been looking at us, and he kind of just takes it in his stride. He likes just taking in the environment that he's in, and there we go, just having a little look at us, and he really is kind of interested in what goes on around him, and it's wonderful to watch him as he explores these areas. But remember, this is also new for him, these sections. He doesn't know these areas well. He didn't grow up in this section, he wasn't born around here, so he's exploring this area and exploring this little slice of the Mulawati that he's got for now, and he's really kind of making the most of it, and he needs that. He needs to be able to know and be familiar with what goes on here, because if there's ever a situation where, let's say, lions run in or wild dogs, that he knows where the safest points are going to be and where to try and get himself to in order to avoid being hurt or eaten or anything like that. And so this curious nature that he's got is not only kind of helping him out figure out how to catch food, it's also helping him figure out how to stay safe in an area that is predator rich and full of bad, terrible things. So it's good that he is the way he is, and it's just the only thing is he mustn't be too curious and engage with some of these things, because otherwise he's going to get himself hurt. The other day with the elephants, it was ridiculous. He was just trotting around in amongst them as though they weren't anything to worry about, and obviously elephants can be quite nasty when they want to be, and they really could be quite a handful if they got anywhere near him. So he needs to be a little bit careful in that regard and just not investigate too much. And also his brazen disregard for other leopards is going to get him into trouble at some point if he doesn't watch himself. He needs to, pay attention and to not be this curious little boy that just walks up to the nearest leopard and kind of goes and sniffs and has a little look and wants to make friends. He needs to be far more cautious of who he's approaching and why he's approaching them. He's lucky that so far it's been Hosana and Shongile, both of which are trying to find their feet and are in no way territorial and therefore far more understanding. Also, Tingana, being his dad, knows he's not a threat just yet, but that will soon change. The more Tingana finds him on his own, the more Tingana smells his urine, the more Tingana is going to realize, hang on a second, this is a young male that's no longer with the mother, and he's starting to make a little home for himself, and he's not going to be too impressed about it. So he needs to be very careful about who he goes sniffing around with and sort of smelling and talking and spending time around. There we go. Isn't that those markings absolutely beautiful? Now I remember this morning, I can't remember who it was, but someone asked, isn't he quite light coloured? But if you look there, you can actually see he's got a deep, deep gold back. Look at that orangey kind of coloured back that he's got. He has a really beautiful coat that is rich in coloration. Oh, are you going to sit there now? Right, I'm going to just try and reposition myself so I can get into a better situation that we can actually see him. First, I'm going to get into low range because otherwise Rusty's not going to go up the bank. Come on, Rusty. Up you go. Go. So we just need to try and get ourselves into a position where we can actually get round this tree that is blocking us at the back here. So just try there. Am I good there, Senzo? This is why it's nice to have Rusty, because Rusty's power is just that much more, and getting up and down the Mulawati is so much easier in Rusty than it is in Wendy. So it really is very pleasant to have him at the moment and to have him working properly again. So hopefully he will stay in the way that he is now. Now where's little Thamba? I don't want to spook him. Okay, there he is. He's alright. So let's just get around like this. How's that? And so that is about as good as it gets in terms of seeing a male leopard right out in the open, in the sand. So I just want to straighten Senzo out so he's not shooting in case he walks towards us, that Senzo is not having to worry about the aerial. There we go. How's that, Senzo? So, absolutely beautiful. How nice is that, guys? And the light is quite pleasant now. Even though the sun is going down, it's a soft soft light that we're seeing on him at the moment, which is really quite wonderful. So he's just sitting, watching what's going on, watching these vehicles going back and forth, and probably wondering to himself, what is all the fuss about? I'm just wanting to sleep. Why do you all want to look at me? You are a little rock star, Thamba. Lots of people want to photograph you, and lots of people have photographed you, so unfortunately you're going to have to get used to it. I wonder where he's going to end up in life. I wonder if he's going to be a leopard that's going to spend time here in the northern sands, or if he's going to distribute into somewhere else in the Sabi sands, or into the Kruger. I really hope it is somewhere where we can follow him and follow his kind of life as he becomes an adult and becomes a territorial individual. It would just be really wonderful to know where he and Hosanna are, even if they don't settle here and we don't see them, just to know where they are and to get regular updates on them will just be so nice. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case, and that there will be places where they're going to spend a lot of time. Oof, so nice. Palin, you're most certainly a leopard can survive with one eye. I've known 2 females that have had one eye in my time. One was Safari, the mother of Kruger, and in fact, even the grandmother of this little Thamba. So she was the grandmother of basically Thandi, so great-grandmother, is it? Yes, great-grandmother of little Thamba. And she had one eye, and she had one eye for 6 years and managed to survive to 19, which is way over the average for a leopard. So it just shows you they can survive very well with one eye. They just will rely heavily on their other senses. So they'll use their ears, they'll use their nose, their whiskers, all to be able to try and figure out the environment. But isn't that beautiful? Oof. So nice. So yes, they can survive. And the other female that I've spent time with, who is still alive now, is Nsele. Nsele is the daughter of Salesh and is dominant around the western part of Elephant Plains and Simbambili. And she also only has one eye and is perfectly fine, moving around and doing just fine and catching the food, and even successfully raising a cub at the moment. She's got a cub, and I think the cub is about 9 months old, and she's had one eye the whole time she's had that cub. So they can survive with one eye. They do survive, and they do it very well, actually, because they just kind of work it out, and they're able to know exactly where to go and what to do, and they use all the other senses in order to help them catch prey. It's interesting though that their eye adjusts to also depth perception, because the 2 eyes help us to be able to judge distance, and so it's amazing that they can actually adapt from having the one eye to 2 and being able to work it out and know exactly what they're doing. You can see he's listening to all the francolins that are calling around us. What's behind you? Nothing's behind you there. Just the wind. Satisfied he's explored all those options. And his ears are still quite big for him, as well as his paws. I mean, he's still growing into them. Remember, he's not a fully grown individual by any stretch of the imagination. These guys only really reach fully grown at around sort of 5-6 years old. So he's got a long way to go until he reaches fully grown size. And he will be impressive wherever he ends up. And I just hope that he keeps the same sort of dark coloration that he's got in striking black markings, and those eyes stay as vivid as what they are now. Because if they do, the lady leopards are going to be a firm fan of this individual, and especially if he can dominate an area with high density of females, he'll be a busy boy, I think. Of course, leopards don't really look at that at all. They don't care how ugly another leopard is, as long as he's dominant and is able to protect their cubs. That's what they want out of a leopard. They're not about looks, so hopefully he will be able to survive and be able to still look good doing it. Oh, bless you. Take care. You were asking how Safari lost her eye. Well, funny enough, her eye was still there. It was just very badly damaged. And I can't remember the exact story now. It's such a long time since I've actually thought about this. But it was something to do with, I can't remember if it was another leopard, maybe Mafufanyan. Yes, I think it was Mafufanyan. And her and Mafufanyan had a fight, and he lashed out and clawed her in the eye then unfortunately was damaged, and it always used to swell and get full of blood and infections. And I once remember watching her hunting, and she ran into a branch, and it pierced the eye, and all of this this stuff came out and it was really unpleasant, and you could see she was really not in good shape. She really didn't like it at all, and that was when she was already 18, so she got a lot older and she was not in the best shape of her life, and that must have hurt a lot. But she used to regularly find her with her eye weeping and it's swollen, and it really didn't look very nice at all. But she was just the most wonderful leopard, and I cherish every moment that I got to spend with her. She was such a legend of this particular area, and I really wish at that stage, you know, Safari Live was running, because she was a very special character, and the fact that she managed to survive to the age that she did was just absolutely phenomenal. We only caught the back end of her life, but like I say, I mean, some of the guys here saw her for all of those 19 years that she was alive, and I mean, that's a long, long time for a leopard. Sounded like there was something coming down the bank behind us, but I can't see anything at this stage, so I think all is okay. So Thamba's certainly watching around. Oh, a little shake of the head. I don't think he's going to be down for too long. I think he's going to start moving just now, and maybe he's going to groom himself a little bit longer and just work out what's going on, and then he's going to start getting up and going. There's quite fidgety. There we go. So fidgety, he's been yawning. Look at how long his legs are still. He hasn't quite grown into those legs yet. And let's see just how relaxed he's gotten. He's never used to walk between vehicles. No, you see, he's not going to walk between vehicles, but he is going to walk right past me and not going to worry about me at all. No, you don't jump on that bonnet. You're not allowed to do that. I just have to remind him of his manners, because he had a little thought there, I think, where he was like, oh, I wonder if I can get on top there and just jump over there and all the way onto the other side without having to go down and back up again. But I'm glad you thought twice about it. Oh, are you going to lie right there for us? You wonderful thing. That is absolutely phenomenal. He is lying no more than, I would say, a meter away from me at eye level, and just staring at Senzo and I and his own reflection probably in the camera. There's the edge of the car, and it is really the most wonderful thing to have a leopard at that distance just staring at you. It's ridiculous. We are spoiled here. We really are spoiled by the leopards of the Sabi Sands. They allow us the most intimate views. It's fantastic to be able to see things like this. He looks very regal up there, doesn't he? Oh boy. What's wrong? Amazing how he's just watching us. Astrid, we're looking at my favorite cats. Well, of the younger generation, I have a struggle. Leopards in general are my favorite cats, all of them. But I have a struggle with selecting a particular one. But of the young generation is Thamba, of the females Thandi, and of the males Anderson. So the big boys is Anderson, and those are my three favorites that are around and alive. And they're all incredible animals, and it's amazing actually that two of them are mother and son, basically. So it's pretty cool that they're around. Maybe that's something to do with it. Maybe that's why I like them, is because it is mother and son, and he takes after his mom a bit in some ways, and he really is just a beautiful individual. How could you not enjoy looking at a face like that? You're putting on a show this afternoon. You know that. Wow, very special. I wonder what he's watching. He seems to be watching something moving around behind us. I just keep hearing something kind of in the grass. Maybe it's a little Franklin that's moving around behind me in the grassy areas, because I keep hearing a rustling, and then he looks that way. I can't see anything, so it's not a big animal, but whatever it is nice. And there you can see the sunset in the background, so that is a beautiful shot, Senzo. It's sunset, leopard, mulawati, tall trees. About as good as it gets, really. Maybe if I just put a bit of light on, Senzo, you'll be able to expose better for your sunset, and you can bring out the colours, because the colours are quite nice there. There we go. How's that? Isn't that wonderful? I think so. To me, anyway. It is. I hope that all of you are enjoying it just as much as well. Look at how his ears are also working. It's amazing here. He's gone from fairly sleepy to fairly awake. The ears are twitching all the time. He's looking around. It's almost like he knows now's the time that he needs to be attentive and watch out, and that he needs to start looking for various food items. He really is in a different sort of mode now than what we saw from him maybe 10 minutes ago. He's a lot more aware of his surrounding and a lot more kind of taking in of what's going on. He's not just sort of lying down and aimlessly looking around. He's a little bit more focused now. You can see those eyes are really kind of staring into what's happening and making sure he's analyzing everything that's going on. And you're close when we can have a visual of his eyes at that distance. Isn't that just ridiculous? We've got basically both eyes and they are staring right at us. Hey, little Thamba? Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Do you like them when we are close by, Thamba? It's so funny with these cars, how a lot of the time with these smaller vehicles, the Leopards seem to be a lot more comfortable than the other cars. He was walking towards the other vehicle and he just decided, nope, I'm not going that way, I'm going to go this side. And he's now lying on the bank, like I say, right next to us and just staring at us. He's really kind of just looks at Senzo, then he looks at me, looks at the camera every now and then, but is not fazed by us at all, which is just phenomenal to me. The fact that he's really not worried by us is quite special. We are spoiled to be sitting next to a leopard, a wild leopard. Remember, this is a cub that 6 months ago, he was not really interested in vehicles, didn't want to know anything about vehicles, was trying to run away from vehicles, and yet where we are now, I mean, it's as close as you're ever going to get to a wild leopard, or you would ever want to get to a wild leopard, and he is at complete ease. He's in no way stressed by our presence. You can see his ears are perky, his tail is flat, he's not even swishing his tail. Every now and then he has a little look at us, but otherwise couldn't be sort of fazed by the fact that we are right next to him. It's an amazing thing to see. And it just goes to show, with a bit of respect and a little bit of kind of caring and watching of what we do, animals can be fairly trusting, and we can be able to get into situations like this where we can view them without impacting on them and staying right close. Oh, are you stretching out now to rest? Okay. And look at how thick that neck is starting to get. He's starting to get a nice big broad shoulder area and is really getting quite big there. You see, when male leopards start to grow, their heads almost look as though they go straight onto the body and there's no real separation. Females tend to have that thinning of the neck, whereas with him you can see he's kind of got that squat neck area that is very swollen, and it's going to be a very large lad. His head will eventually grow into that neck a little bit more than what it is now. The only problem with having him this close is he's bringing all the flies, so all those biting flies that were irritating him are now buzzing around our head at the moment and causing a little bit of trouble, so hopefully they will decide to move on and leave us alone, because I can do without the flies. It's not the best part of having them around is that they actually sting and hurt a little bit. Chatty Meg, I think there's a couple of reasons why he's so comfortable around us. Firstly, yes, because we have been following him around for quite some time. We've been spending a lot of time with him in this phase where he's almost becoming independent, and so the vehicle, he hears the sound, he knows that sound, and he knows that it's not a threat. That's also coupled with the fact that this vehicle is much smaller. We do not have a tracker on our front seat, and we have far less movement in the form of people. It's just Senzo and myself on here. There is not 8 or 9 or 10 people that are moving around and fidgeting and clicking of cameras and going crazy and dropping things and talking. It's just 2 people, and we're a relatively small object in comparison to those bigger vehicles, and that's maybe why he's a lot more aware of his surroundings. Now, what have you spotted, Thamba? I think he spotted that warthog from earlier. Yes, he has spotted the warthog from earlier. There's the warthog on the other side. But, Thamba, that warthog is too big for you. You can't eat that, I'm afraid. You can see it's not going to stop him, though. He's watching with intense patience, and he'll know that that warthog goes into that burrow and into that mound where we were earlier, but like I say, it's going to be far too big for him. It's not going to stop him, though. Off he goes to go and try and hunt this warthog. See, look where he's walking, straight towards the burrow. He knows where that warthog is going, and if he's clever and he positions himself right, he might be able to have a go at it, but he's going to have to be careful. A warthog is a dangerous animal and not something he must mess around with at all. But you see, he's walking straight to where that warthog was this morning. He's not even going anywhere near where the warthog is. The warthog is to my left, but he's going straight towards where he knows that warthog is moving and heading towards, and he's going to try and cut that warthog off using an area that he can sit in and basically camouflage much better. It's very clever already. So our young boys are showing some promise. Even though they're younger and they're not as experienced and they're smaller, they are showing some incredible hunting techniques already. But there he goes, he's already up the road. Just don't walk too fast, Thamba, otherwise you're going to catch yourself. Or that warthog's going to see you. Now let's see, are we in for another hunt again? Proud cat mama, when they go for a kill, it depends on what they're going for, where they bite first. If they're going for something like an impala, there he's trotting, so I'm just going to try and keep up with him. But if they're going for something like an impala, duiker, steenbok, antelope species, generally for the throat. If they're going for something like a warthog, you'll often find they grab it by the chest and they actually eat through its chest plate towards its heart and try and get to the heart, because the tusks of a warthog, there goes the warthog, it's running. Now where's Thamba? I saw him running up here as well, so I don't know if there he is. He's just watching the warthogs running past him. What are you doing, Thamba? I think he spooked the warthog, because there's the warthog and there's where he is, and he's not even facing that warthog anymore. He's now looking in completely the opposite direction. Oh no, now he's swinging the warthog. But I'm sure that warthog has spotted him. Yes, you can hear the warthog is alarm calling. It's snorting and sniffing at him. Are we going to see the warthog getting some revenge and chasing the leopard? Can you hear the warthog? Look, the warthog's coming back. It's almost as if to say, I'm not having any of this. I need to get into my burrow. I need to go to sleep. It's getting dark. And it's coming back towards where Thamba is. You can actually hear these kind of growls that are coming, and that's actually from the warthog. It's not from Thamba at all. This is an incredible interaction between the two of them. It's not something we witness very often at all. You can see Thamba's not really too perturbed by all of this nonsense. He's like, whatever, warthog, you can shout and do your thing, I'm not interested. The warthog is very upset because it now is getting caught out of its hole in the dark, and that means it's up for a lot of problems, and it's going to have to try and find itself somewhere else to go and spend the night. Also, this warthog is not sure where to go. You can see there's a gust of wind going around. You can see how it's stopping and now sniffing. The wind is blowing directly from Thamba towards it. Now it's coming trotting back again. It's a big, big female, this. I wonder what's going to happen. Thamba's laid down now. He's in the grass, just sitting. So I don't know if this warthog can actually see him anymore. And that's dangerous for the warthog, because the warthog might make a run for the hole thinking that it's safe. You can see it, look, it's putting up its nose to sniff, trying to pick up any scent that's on the wind, that there might be an indication of where this leopard is lying. But Thamba is really well hidden in a section of grass, and if this warthog makes a little trot across the front of him, maybe, just maybe, he might have a go. But I was saying earlier that they'll try and target the chest of a warthog because of those tusks. You see the tusks in front? Those are very dangerous for a leopard. And it's going right in front of him. Now we should get a two-shot of the warthog and Thamba. There we go. So there's Thamba hidden in the grass. Warthog slowly running in front of him. But he doesn't seem too interested in the warthog. I don't think the warthog's... Maybe the warthog's seen him now because he just turned his head. Thamba, what are you doing? There goes the warthog again. I think the warthog's trying to work out a way around this to get... like I say, to the hole so that it can get to some semblance of safety. Once it's down the hole, it's in the pound seat, so to speak, because it reverses down, tusks face forward, and it only takes the most powerful of leopards to drag a warthog out of its hole. It's almost like trying to pull a cork out of a bottle that just doesn't want to come out. And so you'll find that only the likes of Anderson and Tingana would be strong enough to even pull that out. Thamba wouldn't have the strength yet. So if this warthog can get to its little hole, then it's going to have a situation where it will be safe. But that's why it's panicking, is it's not sure which way to go at all. How cool is this though? Our little boy leopards have given us the most ridiculous sightings the last few days. We've had Hosanna stalking twice, or 3-4 times actually, if I think about it. Little Thamba is starting to work it out for himself as well, that he needs to start chasing animals, albeit he's not nearly as successful as what Hosanna is at this stage, but still he's getting interest in things, and he's watching and he's learning and he's gaining valuable experience on how to hunt. And so it's an amazing process to watch, and they really are spoiling us. And it just goes to show, you sit with a cat that is sleepy and is not really doing anything, and you show a bit of patience, and you can get the most crazy sightings out of them. And that's one of the best things about the job that we do, is that, and one of the things that I always try and tell guests when they come, is that patience will be rewarded. If you sit and you allow things to happen, that's when you get your best sightings, because animals are not like us as people. They're not instant gratification kind of beings where they just want things to happen straight away and right now, and they're not sitting here waiting for us to come around the corner to put on a show. They really are animals that will sort of tick to their own time, and we've just got to fit in with that. And so if you're patient and you spend hours with animals, you then get rewarded with a lot more of these interactions and sightings like this, where we're watching 2 of these animals basically in a chess game for their lives at the end of the day, because Thamba, he's got to eat to survive, and well, this warthog has to get into its house or its home to not be out and roaming around in the dark, and therefore susceptible to things like lion and hyena and bigger male leopards that could be roaming around. So it's almost a game of chess as this warthog tries to run up and down and work out which way is it going to go, and try and find a way to get to that hole so that Thamba doesn't chase it. Now you see it's running back towards where Thamba is. Thamba's making no effort to hide though. It's not like he's putting his head down and going flat like we've seen from Hosanna the last few days. He's just kind of got his head up watching this warthog run by there, and now he's got his head down. So you see now, he's just got his ears flattened and he's watching. Now that warthog, I doubt, can see too much of him unless it knows that actually that's where the leopard was. You see, it's not as sure as it was earlier, but the distance is still too far. So that distance is too far for a leopard. Something like a cheetah or wild dogs most certainly would chase that warthog now, even maybe lions. But a leopard, it is far too far from them. They do not have the speed to keep up with that warthog. And you see the warthog still knows something's not right. The wind is also not good here. The wind is blowing from Thamba to that warthog and is keeping him from getting any closer. That warthog is picking up his scent the whole time. Sky, you say that you think Thamba is simply observing the warthog for future hunting possibilities. Yes, it's pretty much exactly what he's doing, but he's not going to say no. If that warthog stumbles upon him, he's going to jump on it to try and grab it. At the end of the day, it's food, and so he's watching and he's learning and he's trying to pick up ways of hunting this, and he's got to grow a little bit before he'll be an effective warthog hunter. Unfortunately, warthogs are strong animals, and it requires a lot of size and strength for a leopard to go after them, and so he has to be able to bulk up before he's going to really challenge big warthogs like this. But he still won't say no. If the warthog ran straight towards him, he might tackle it, or he might run. It's difficult to say. I've seen leopards running from warthogs from time to time as well. So he is learning, no doubt. He's working it out, and he's going to learn a valuable experience from this. He's not going to catch this warthog. This warthog is very aware something is wrong. It's trotting up and down and is checking things out very carefully, and it knows there's a leopard here. I mean, it saw the leopard. It's not like it's a warthog that doesn't know that there's a threat. It's definitely aware there's a threat, and so the chance of him catching it is pretty much zero at this stage. You can see the warthog has now rounded him and is going to head off towards that burrow, and he's really got very little chance now to go after it. He might try and trot after it to catch up and try and kind of keep up with it, given that he's an eager young individual, but he is learning valuable lessons from this and how to go about hunting warthogs. And there goes the warthog off into the distance, and little Thamba watches willingly. How cool is that? Macy, no, they were probably... Oh, here's a nyala. There's a whole bunch of nyala coming now. Hang on a second. I was just about to go around to Thamba, but I'm just going to reposition, because there's a whole lot of nyala that are coming past and coming out into this clearing, and I don't want to get between Thamba and the nyala, because I don't want either one to be obscured. But that warthog, unfortunately, no, I don't think it would get any help. There's no other warthogs that I've seen around here, and it only will be if the warthogs are in the immediate vicinity and they're related, would they try and help out and keep the predator at bay. In a situation like this, there's nobody here. Nobody's going to come running to a screaming warthog and try and help it out, because at the end of the day, it's going to have a tough time of it. But there the nyala are. Thamba's not even seen the nyala. He's busy walking off, and I wonder if the nyala are going to spot him. Thamba, look this way. Nope, he's missed them completely. He's literally just walked off and has not spotted those nyala at all. Nothing whatsoever. Oh, Thamba, you need to look around, my boy. You're very aware for your warthog, but you slightly missed the boat on the nyala, I'm afraid. Now, where is he gone? I saw him walking and slinking off to my right-hand side here. There he is. Slowly but surely meandering his way through the grass. Wonder if he's going to go back to his little scrub hare, if there's any sign of that scrub hare left that he can potentially go and eat. Might be going that way. We'll just meander along behind him and see where he goes and have a little follow. I want to leave him fairly shortly now to go and see the Birmingham males. I believe they've come south a little bit and are now very visible from the cut line. So I do want to go and hang around with them just for the last 15 minutes or so. So I will leave him shortly, but I just want to see where he goes from here for tomorrow morning, so that I know where he is exactly. But he's still looking around, still aware. And now he's heading back towards that warthog hole that we were talking about earlier. Ali, yes, I have. I have witnessed quite a few leopard kills right in front of me. I've witnessed steenbok, duiker, mongoose, warthog, piglets, birds multiple times, monitor lizards, snake, what else? Various things. The only thing I've never seen, and this you'll find all quite ridiculous because every guide in the Sabi Sands has seen it except for me, is a leopard killing an adult impala. Can you believe that I have never, ever seen that? I've seen them killing baby impalas, I've seen them getting there and the impala's still kicking, but I've never actually seen a leopard in all these years and all this time spent with leopards, still yet to see a leopard take a fully grown impala. It is ridiculous. I don't know how it's happened. I have no idea. So Ali in final control, my Ali, so different Ali to the last Ali, wants to know if I remember the rhino not the rhino, because the rhino wouldn't hoist, but the leopard that hoisted a rhino at Lion Sands. So yes, I do remember that quite clearly. It was incredible. There is a video of it on YouTube, I think, somewhere. And basically, yeah, this leopard there was a leopard by the name of Tumbela, and he took a rhino calf up a tree, which is just pretty insane if you ask me. So that was pretty cool to watch and pretty amazing to see, and given that it is a rhino themed kind of day, and exactly what kind of happened. So I'm just going to go creep forward a little bit because we should be able to see a little bit better through this thicket. This is where the carcass was and where he was feeding. Now of course it is getting quite dark, so we'll probably try and switch to IR just to be able to see what's going on while he's behind those bushes. So if it goes black and white, you know why. You can see it's very dark for the camera now, and it's going to be tough to focus in those kind of things without going IR. But it looks like a little bit of meat still there where he is now. There looks like a bit of a carcass. So I wonder if he's not just going to finish up the last little bit now quickly. But this must be covered in flies and insects and ants, and he's going to have to shake all of those off before he starts feeding. Nope, we've realized there's not really much food there. This is all fur that we've got in this area. Sniffing around, just checking to see if there isn't any food. Sorry, little Thamba, that there isn't much there for you. But maybe he'll find himself another meal tonight. Right, I think what I'm going to do is probably leave him now, because it's going to take me some time to get towards those lions. And like I say, we've had such a spoiled time with Thamba today. We've spent a lot of time with him. He's still staying the same place, and I'm going to try and head to those lions, and hopefully we're going to get a finish to our day with a shouting 4 Birmingham males in our ears. So that's what I'm going to try and do. It's been an absolute treat with Thamba, so we're going to just leave him right where he is right now. Going to feed a bit. So he's just got himself a little bit of a piece of skin that he's just crunching down on. You can see there he's just having a little bit of food. So I don't think he's going to go too far from here. I'm sure we'll find him here again tomorrow morning. We'll definitely come and have a little look, but I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of him having this little meal and settling down a little bit. So that's us. And now I'm gonna try and head towards